go step by step to have a very good discussion on things as they are today, even with organ harvesting and up to 2027 and beyond. Asante sana and good evening. Happy Easter.
Happy Easter. Yes, that's, of course, the highlight of the day with Easter. Professor Karuti, I extend the mic to you. Kindly accept my invite as well. Honorable Susion, also extend the mic to you as well. And thank you, Honorable Richard Onyonka, for joining us this evening. We're looking forward to, of course, hearing from you. And Jeremiah, good evening. And thank you for joining us. So we're just getting introductory remarks. Let me hear from Onyonka, your speaker is on. I mean, yes, I can see your mic is on.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you perfectly. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here. Sorry I didn't show up last week, but I'll be showing up.
Your sins are forgiven.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yes, thank you. You know, everyone was asking me, hey, are you putting up Onyonkas and other politicians, you know, faces as a bait, you know? So it should be like a sort of a clickbait. But no, truly, we speak sometimes they get caught up as well. But then when they show up, we really appreciate, because also they enrich the discussion, because they are the people who, of course, are the legislators. And when we discuss these things, when they're here is good, so that they take it to Parliament. We had Dr. James Nikal. He was just coming from a meeting. Once he settled down, we should be on. Jeremiah Kioni, good to see you. Good evening. Let me just also extend a hearty welcome to you. Thank you for joining us. Let's hear your voice.
Asante sana, Dibala. I'm happy to be here. Happy Easter to everybody. I want to listen like more than talk. I can see veterans here. I need to learn more from them.
Hey, you're a consummate veteran as well. So what do you mean that you can see veterans here? Yeah, where with all the pictures, of course, flanking Matiang'i, you cannot really afford not to speak. So you wouldn't be a fly on the wall here tonight. I promise you.
We will speak. I see Kabado. Is Kabado with us? Not yet.
Oh, Kabado, yes, he's supposed to be with us as well. So yeah, he will join us momentarily. Thank you. Nice to hear your voice. Let's hear from Professor Gitile Naituli. You went missing, of course, flying under the radar, but I saw your name somewhere. Maybe that could have been the reason amongst some of the people who had applied for the IBC to be interviewed as well. So you wanted to keep your mouth a bit mealy-mouthed, so that at least you should save face when it comes to the panelists as well. Is that so? I'm just saying this with my tongue, of course, family in check. Good evening. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, evening, everybody, and happy Easter. I'm glad to be here for the first time. And Bao, you are right. I went under Kidogo. But you see, these Kenyans are very interesting. They didn't even short list. I don't know, you get shortlisted one time, you attend the interview, and the next one you don't qualify. But I was told that both the opposition submitted a list and the government submitted a list. So they have basically been taking Kenyans for a ride. They already have the 6 they wanted to employ. And that is what has become our Kenyan, basically.
Oh, so that you're not among the...
And that means I'm neither opposition nor government.
So, no, you cannot be in a demilitarized zone. You've got to be somewhere at least. You know, they normally say the human being is atavistic. So you could be hanging on somewhere.
At least as far as IBC is concerned, it appeared I was neither in opposition nor in government. That's why I was not submitted.
All right, we'll hear from you later. Thank you.
Santi.
Dibao.
Professor Karuti, can you hear us? Hello? Professor Karuti Kanyinga.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, yeah, you're muted. Yes. You can hear us?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for joining us.
I'm here to listen more than speak today.
But of course,
Yes.
we'll be picking from your. We'll be picking from your. Of course, we'll be picking your brains as well along the way. I want to
I
also.
will do. I'll do that. Yes.
Thank you. Haman Manyora joining us from Ushago. I know you're talking about kindly, first of all, accept my invite to speak so that you can also hear your voice as well this evening. The last time we were speaking, you were in up country, right? And so you're not really sure about also the network from there. But I want to, of course, extend a hearty welcome to you as well. So we have a lot to cover before we hear from Mohammed Manyora as he gets the mic and put his ducks in a row. We want to hear from Wilson Sosion as well. Mushimura, you've not accepted my invite to speak, right? Oh yeah, there you are. Wilson Sosion, good evening. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, good evening, Dibal. Yeah, I'm happy to be here today. And I can see you have new guests on the list and a very interesting topic. I would be keen to see how we navigate and discuss this particular matter. Thank you, Dibal. And Benji.
Thank you very much. And so to
Asante.
welcome, yeah, yes, we want to thank you for, of course, also being consistent as well. I wish this was young. Right, we want just to get to brass tacks right now and discuss a lot of issues because of issues of time, and we have, of course, many voices here. We want also to make sure that we optimize some of this public intellectuals that we do have that will enrich our discussion this evening. Many things have been happening, as I mentioned earlier, just for my intro. The recent revelations of possible organ trafficking at a hospital in Nairobi, which we now know is a public, of course, in the public domain right now. The exposure of this crime by also an Israeli firm that have reopened urgent questions about the state of medical ethics, regulatory oversight, and exploitation in Kenya. And as I mentioned, I tried and connected this, which really echoes uncomfortably familiar with the Shakahola massacre or previous cases of human trafficking. And today's discussions, we want just to unpack how such crimes continue to thrive in the shadows and what we must do to end it. And we know it brings the harrowing tortures that, or the harrowing memories, sobering memories of Shakahola tragedy. To me, I think that was the day of ignominy that we do had in this country when we had so many people still dying, investigations still underway. And this is where I would like us just to begin before we drill deeper and to get into the politics of things. We know human life is sacred. We know that all of us, we have the image of God. That's what they say. All of us, we have the image of God within us. The imago Dei, as they call it, right? And when we have people harvesting or taking advantage of one another, is it related to anything that we know when it comes to the femicide? Is it related to also the Mukuru Kwanjenga slums where we had all these bodies? Is there any remote connection that is a connective tissue that is underpinning with the organ trafficking? And I wanted just to begin with you, Richard Onyonka, because from the Senate, you're member of the team that, of course, went down even to the Shakahola to come up with a report. And when you had these revelations about Medihill and the suspension of some of the state officials that were involved in this, the complicity, is it really coming from the left, or there's something ulterior really happening? Let's just begin from there before we discuss matters politics. Honorable Richard Onyonka.
Thank you, Dibal. And first of all, I also want to recognize and appreciate all the individuals here on. I appreciate the work that all of you are doing for us to engage and run through this. Dibal, the issue of Shakahola is a reflection of where our country is. I received that information about the Medihill Hospital from somebody. These days, people send documents to us on the phone. And I decided I'm going to ask the questions because I realized that this matter has been kind of put under the rug for a very long time. The truth is, we have body part trafficking in our country. We have human trafficking in our country. I am not sure that our DCI and the police and even the intelligence system that we have right now, given the magnitude and the intense, because it becomes an international crime. And when it is that way, it is obviously a lot of money is involved. And to tell you, Dibal, the truth is that in other parts of the countries, I mean, other parts of the world, there are individuals who are in hospitals who are waiting for body parts, either livers, hearts, or whatever it is. And crooks will always, if the system that is supposed to monitor, that is supposed to supervise, that is supposed to oversight is broken down, the consequences you see are the ones that you are seeing right now with Medihill and indeed Shakahola. Shakahola, the national intelligence failed. Why? Because people were exchanging money. People were being arrested, were being lured into that area. Some of them were lured using all sorts and all methods. Money exchange hands. Very many people were killed. The investigation which we did was not thorough for the simple reason that we are not able to handle forensics as the Senate. We just went there as witnesses. And you look at all that, and then you try and link it up with what is coming out from Eldoret now. I just think that we need to be much more alert, and I can tell you I sometimes feel really hopeless because this is something that is not even political. This is something that a good government organizes, make sure the agencies that are supposed to handle this create even some special agencies to try and manage this and deal with it. And somehow, because of the corruption that we have in our country, even if those agencies came and decided to engage, I can tell you the truth. The moment Kenyans realize how much money is being made from certain activities in the republic, whether it's drug dealing, whether they're selling body parts, whether it's selling whatever you want to call it, then the stakes get higher, and Kenyans are very, very good at it. So if you don't have agencies that are going to be funded properly, that are going to be detribalized, that are going to be de-corruptionized, agencies that are going to stand up and fight without state intervention, without the executive intervening. The problem with our country is that the executive runs on everything. So even when individuals in those agencies may want to work, you will find that they're always worried and scared because they don't know who does what anymore. And that is my basic interpretation of what's going on right now.
Yeah, very unfortunate. Thank you so much. And I want just to also rope in Dr. James Nikal, because that is the domain of course, the health committee right now. We know there has been suspension of officials. We eagerly to wait and see also what Parliament will do. And Dr. Nikal, thank you for joining us. I don't know what you're learning from this, because there seems to be a deep rot, and people are taking advantage of Kenyans right now. Many questions asked, they're being asked, just as we've mentioned, or we've had Honorable Onyonka mentioning the issue of policy and accountability as well. We have ethic, consent, and exploitation that we want also to look at. International collaboration, because this cannot be thriving if there's not a proper network and infrastructure of where these organs are being ferried as well. And selling a kidney for a son, I think that is unjustifiable and is unethical, especially in the medical practice. I don't know if we have any legislation that is up the collective sleeves of Parliament, like maybe the Tissue Act, that other countries also have embedded and entrenched. I'd love to hear that. And of course, also yield the floor to Herman Manyora. Before I come to you, Dr. Nikal, let me just hear from Herman Manyora joining us from Ushago as well. Good evening, Herman. Thank you for joining us.
Good evening, Dibal, and good evening, everybody else.
Yes.
Awesome. Yeah, good evening, everybody. Let off the mic, Dibal, so that the echo disappears. Thank you very much. I'm happy to be around. Like I was happy last week, and like I might be happy next week. Uh, I have heard Richard Onyonka loud and clear. Lack of institutions, lack of agencies, corruption, and all that. I think the basic problem we have in this country goes beyond that. We live in a country where people don't love their country. You know, a country must have people who love it. People who are willing to put down their life for that country. A country must have people who can't allow certain things to happen to the country and to fellow countrymen. The problem with this country, this is a country free for all. I mean, nobody cares about this country. Nobody cares what we eat, what drugs we take. Nobody cares what citizens are subjected to. Because really, apart from chasing money, there is nothing else a Kenyan can do. We have made money everything. We do not leave even a small space, a tiny space for loving your country and fellow countrymen. So that it doesn't touch anybody, but that these kind of things are happening. You know, I began hearing this story of body parts long time ago. It's not likely that the people in charge of this country have not heard of the same. It's unlikely that the security sector hasn't heard of. How can we ordinary people know and they didn't know? Now they are pretending they want to investigate. What do they want to investigate? So the bottom line, the bar is simple. Until we get to a point where there are enough men and women like Richard Onyonka who love this country, nothing will ever work for this country. The citizens will be subject to all manner of things, but nobody will care, especially those in power. It is sad, but let's hope that one day we'll get leadership that will truly love this country, that will care a great deal about the people, and that will not allow certain things. Because today, Dubai, if you are looking for any of these body parts with 10,000, 20,000, there'll be people willing to do it. Look at the gambling going on in this country. Can a country survive this kind of gambling? You know, look at the drug peddling in this country. Look at foreigners having a field day with drugs in this country. A country must have men and women who love it. And I think that is a problem. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Aman Manyora. We just to set the tone for the conversation, so that at least we can hear from Dr. James Gikal much later on the legislation, and of course what the health committee will be doing, just to lay, of course, the groundwork and to just cop the lay of the land. I want to invite Professor Gitila Naituli, because I remember when we had the issue of Shakahola, I never saw it from the perspective of him talking about human organ trafficking. And of course, people are speculating around it. It's not been well established if it's true. But along the way, we saw, yes, maybe there is a modicum of truth somewhere. Maybe there is a tinge of truth somehow. We cannot truly establish. And there's some nefarious activities happening in the country that is unbeknownst to many people. So I was also quite consternated to find even some of the investigations or the probings that were going on could highlight that as well. And Richard Onyoka will tell us much more of what they really, saw on the ground. Up to now, most families have not even gotten the bodies. We know the issue of DNA testing, forensic testing is quite expensive, and we saw the number ticking up to the region of over 1,000. Professor Gitila Naituli, I want to just get your perspective, even looking at what is currently in the state of play with the organ trafficking. What have you been reading from your lips?
Well, about our problem as Kenyans is to go around in circles. I mean, I've listened to Richard Onyoka carefully. Onyoka knows that this government is extremely powerful state. It's a government that you can't do anything, actually. An ordinary person can't do anything without being arrested the following day. So in short, if you remember, when we were in KTN and Shakaola came, I told you straight away this is organ harvesting. Because you look at the profile of the way they were announcing. These were young people, young people. And the fact that something of that magnitude can take place in Kenya, it can only take place under the blessing of the state. So let's just face it. It's the government that is eating its people here. It's not foreigner or Kenyans cannot commit crimes of this level and then get away with it without the state being involved. So this is the same as having sugar with the mercury, then it's sold to the Kenyans, having contaminated the cooking oil. You have to look at these things in global terms. We, unfortunately for the people of Kenya, is that I know Manyora was going also around this. The straight point is that for the 60 years, the Kenyans never had a government of Kenya. A government is like an individual. It has a mind. A colonial mind is it extracts and it doesn't care what happens to you because it's not interested in you. So the first government, colonial mind. The second government under Moi, colonial mind. We got a break with the Kibaki. We got a government that resembled a government of Kenya under Kibaki. And the things seemed to work. The agencies Richard Nyoka was talking about, what? They started protecting people. KEF started protecting Kenya. DCI started protecting Kenya. And then we lapsed in 2013. We went back to our colonial mind. We are now continuing in our colonial state. So the Kenyans are basically on their own. A crime this level can never take place in a country with a government that loves its people. So your problem is the government. The election is coming in 2027. Maybe we will now elect a government of Kenya by Kenyans, not a colonial extractive state, which is what we have. Organic harvesting is part of extraction. Contaminated cooking oil is part of the extraction. Sugar with the mercury is part of the extraction. Corruption has become the largest government expenditure, part of the corruption. I mean, part of the extraction. We behave when we have power as if we are going somewhere else, as if we are not going to be in Kenya. So let's not mislead one another. The organ harvesting is under supervision of the state. Otherwise, those people would have been arrested the first time they touch a Kenyan. This is a strong state. Nobody should fool you. The Kenyan government is one of the strongest government on planet Earth. There is nothing you can do. When they want to work, they will get you the next morning after you have done it. Thank you. What happened?
Thank you. We can hear you. Thank you. Yes.
Yes.
Well, very quite vividly put, and you raise also very pertinent questions. But also the issue of is it happening under the watch of government? Is government involved? I think maybe it would be nice also to have any stitch of evidence, scrap of proof to also try and lay on the table as well. But thank you for your comments. These are issues that we want to interrogate here. Allow me just to invite Professor Peter Kagwanja also to weigh in briefly. Then we shall hear from James Chikal and Honorable Richard Onyonka. Kabano is having some guest, of course, siku ya Pasaka. Watu wanataka kubarikiwa, so will be joining us momentarily as well. All right, over to you, Peter Kagwanja. I yield the floor to you. Good evening. Kindly remember to unmute if you're speaking. Professor Peter Kagwanja, kindly remember to unmute if you're speaking. Calling on you 1, calling on you 2, calling on you 3. All right. Let me just invite Dr. James Chikal as we're waiting for Peter Kagwanja to join us. Professor Dr. James Chikal, over to you.
Thank you, Debal. Let me also appreciate that we have this opportunity to be with you today. I missed last week. I was on the other week. And I think we have very important issues to discuss. and the issue of organ harvesting. I share the view that it's something that can't go on if it is going on without involvement or without somebody looking the other side, because the issue of harvesting organs is complex. It's not that you will go to the street and get somebody, get their kidney and put it into another person. The first thing that has to happen is that the two people have to be tissue matched. You have to get some blood, you have to get some tissues, so that you know that the kidney you are taking, for example, will not be rejected by the body of the person that is receiving it. And even when you have done that, then the actual harvesting should be done the same time that it will be put in. So you will probably have two theaters running side by side. You will have actually two theaters running side by side, so that the team that is harvesting maybe start a little earlier, the team that is going to put it in start a little later, but it should be timed such that when that organ has been harvested, this other one is actually, the other team is ready to actually put it in. And so that is complex. The amount of laboratory work that it has to be done before you use the tissue is important. Even in places where they transport them, like in Europe, it's a very complex thing, because people are tissue matched before. And if there's a patient, we know this patient in this place is tissue matched to this level. And so if an organ gets available somewhere, even in those developed countries, they know the moment they want to transport that organ, you don't have much time. You can't take hours, okay? You can freeze them, but even freezing doesn't take. So that you say, in this town, we now have an organ that is available. So in the other town, there's the patient who can receive it, who has been matched, start the operations. We are coming, we are harvesting this organ, and we'll freeze it for the meantime that we are traveling with it. And it reaches there in a very short time. I don't think you are talking of hours. So if, and I'm saying if it is happening, that can't happen without very elaborate arrangement. So for me, when I heard of Shakahola and organ, what I've been waiting for now, I'm in the health committee, I'm the chair, and I really have to go out and find out where are the labs that this tissue matching is happening. If you get that person whose organ, when do you take the blood? When do you match it? When do you know who is going to get it? That is the first thing you know. And when they're negotiating, who links them together? So it's a complex thing. And all I can say is that for me, I think now I'm in a position that I will get to the bottom of it. Now, the Cabinet Secretary for Health has said he has stopped the operations. But for all I know, that hospital actually had other problems, I think, with NHIF, and has not been operating for a long time. So I don't know what we have stopped now. Maybe it should have been stopped earlier. So that is something, as our committee, will probably wait and hear what is it they have done. We'll have to look at what have they put in place to look at it. Is it something going to work? If not, we'll get in ourselves and go and see how this complex procedure is going. What made me think that there may be some issue in it was I just read that somebody said that our patients come with their donors. That means there is some process going on somewhere where there's a link between these two people, where they are being matched, where the tissue, blood is being taken, sent abroad to who is the recipient and matched. So then they come into Kenya and they get this guy. Is very complex. I think we'll have to get to the bottom of it. Having said the complexity of it, human beings are ingenious. But I want to join everybody saying the problem we have in this country are basically two or three. Number one is corruption, politics, and business. And if you are in ethnicity, the four things, it is a toxic mixture. So that even technical things cannot be done properly because corruption gets in, and even when people are being appointed, ethnicity gets in, and even when you are investigating something, oh, this is our person, the politics gets in. And the worst bit is when money gets in, then nobody wants to look at anything. People just look at money, 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 money all the time. My tribe all the time. My party all the time. Now, there are certain things in nature that defy ethnicity, they defy politics, they defy money because those are the laws of nature. If you're a scientist, you call it science. If you have not, you call it the laws of nature. So we don't follow them. And governance is very important. I had the opportunity to work in the government of President Kibaki. And one thing that I really appreciated, technical people are really appreciated. Directors, you would have 2, 3 ministers who are agreed on something, and you would ask, where is the director? And then you will listen to the director. The technical people are the people who understand how the physical world works. The political world organizes the physical world, but it has no power over the rules of the physical world. The technical people do. So whatever you want to do, we should listen to the technical people. Do we? My experience is that we don't, except that brief moment when we had President Kibaki. Then we had a bit of that. And then let me talk about, you are talking that maybe the next election we are going to get government that will listen. Let me tell you,
Yeah,
the
just
issue
have
of money, let me just say this, the
Okay.
issue of money and politics is something we have to look at in this country. And I think 2027, money is going to play a much bigger role in convincing the people on how to vote. People give out so much money, you wonder, where does this money come from? Even in a small election, people are giving millions, even in a ward election. So those are the things we have to look at. But I know our politics is not right. The way we're relating with the physical world has been really affected by politics, ethnicity, and corruption. So things will not just work. And our value, which is money based, has made the whole thing a real mess. That's what I can say about this for now. Hello?
Thank you, Dr. Nikal. Thank you for those comments as well. And we'll discuss, put tails on those, just to double click on what you're saying and on money and politics with the campaign finance bill as well. I think it's, gathering dust in the National Assembly. You'll know also where the traction of it is. You'll also highlight on that much later. Let me just rope in Richard Onyonka before I come to you, Professor Peter Kagwanja, briefly. Given that the Israeli firm's role, given its role in exposing the alleged trafficking,
Yes.
what does this really reveal about Kenya's internal mechanism for detecting and responding to such crimes? Because this is not the first time that we caught, so to speak, with that lack of better term, pants down. Yeah, we saw the Shakahola, and it looks like the government is. It really came from the left side. The government was caught unawares. Everyone now is trying to put up a task force, as it were, and trying to probe what really happened. The Mutava report also on the charge and the various activities that is happening there as well. You're heavily involved in that. Why was it not really Kenya detecting this? Again, it is foreigners. We have the Israeli farm involved here.
You see, Dibal, for a very long time, let me say, to be fair, maybe for the last 3 years, on a weekly basis, monthly basis, I've been actually looking, analyzing, and trying to understand what is wrong with our system of governance. And what has dawned on me, and that is why I started saying the system is broken. Our system is broken in such a manner that if you listen to what Dr. Nyekali is talking about, if you listen to what Herman Manyora is saying, if you listen to what Professor Naituli, my friend, is saying, we have a country right now that has been disjointed so deliberately that those things that are supposed to be obvious. I mean, it is supposed to be obvious that we know. For example, who is shipping out our women to Saudi Arabia and everywhere? How do they go? Which records do we have? Where do these people come from? But all the time, what do? We receive dead bodies. And the story ends there. And you can look at many of the cases going on. We are talking about real time slavery, where Kenyans are being taken by agents to go and work in Saudi Arabia. Then they are removed from the jobs which were paying them reasonably well. They are shifted over to a place where they don't have their passports. They can't earn. Some of them are not eating in 2 weeks or 3 weeks. That is disallowed to happen to its citizens. So when you come and look at the things that are happening right now in terms of this thing of body parts being sold and everything, our systems are broken. I know what Professor Herman Minyora said. I completely understand what you're saying. We do not have people who love this country, and we are not saying this condescendingly. There are no people who are willing to give their last energy for us to agree that we need a good education. How do we fix it? We need good roads. How are we going to do that? We need to stop the stealing of public resources. How are we going to capture that? What are we going to do to make sure we have good teachers? Our nurses are first class in the world. You must have a people who have a mindset. How you intervene with it or how one would achieve that, I honestly do not know. But the conclusion I've reached is that we are so dysfunctionalized. The country has become so broken down. It's so corrupt. And some of the corrupt is so finessed. I mean, every single sector, you can go to the National Assembly, come to the Senate, you live there, go to the police service, leave, go to the courts. So, my feeling, honestly, is that some of us need to now begin to ask, do we need a constituent assembly where we call each other and we say, you know what, yes, we need a better country than this. You know what, yes, we need to follow the rule of law. You know what, this, we have a constitution, yes. Then we can begin to tell Kenyans, elect good people, people who have got principle, people who have got capacity. Don't go and look for these wash fellas who come to leadership simply because all they want is to have the largesse, fly out their helicopters, drive these big cars, have good homes, big homes which they don't even need. And yet, when you look at the public, who are the employers, the public that is in a mess right now, then you begin to ask and question yourself, where are we going as a country? And my suggestion is we need to put on the brakes and begin to interrogate the issues affecting the country. And these issues must be handled. Otherwise, we have no country. That's my view.
Thank you, Honorable Richard Dunyonka. Thank you for your sentiments. You're raising a hand on a point of order, Benjidol, briefly, before we invite Professor Peter Kagwanja, and then we have also Jeremiah Kioni responding.
Dibal, it's not a point of order. As we proceed, it's always good to continue to give context to the conversation. I just wanted to follow up on my friend Senator Onyonka. Senator Onyonka's father was one of the founding fathers, if you may, of leadership in this country, what sacrifice is. And the reason I want to give this context, Dibal, is because there's a lot of complaining, there's a lot of agony. The senator has spoken about people flying choppers and having all these different homes while the electorates are poor. And so I want to put it to you, brethren, that we now have a rotten culture that needs to be fixed. But how did this culture get rotten? This culture did not happen to get rotten. It is we, the Kenyan people, the voters, both the voters and the leaders, who have become part and parcel of a toxic, I believe, evil spirit driven um, you know, culture. And how does this happen? You find that leaders tell a lot of lies, MPs campaigning say this, they say we'll do this, we'll do that. There's been a lot of fight on CDF Debal, for example, because this is just used as a manipulation tool. And so the question is why? So just to give you maybe one or two small examples, you've got at Langata Cemetery now a situation where next to the cemetery are illegal houses built on grabbed land, and people have actually bought and rented and live in those houses next to a cemetery. Now, how do you explain that? And how is that acceptable? And it goes back to the beginning of the conversation where Professor Manyora asserted quite aggressively that, especially as a leader, you must be a patriot. You must be guided by certain values and certain, you know, guardrails that if you're working in the county, how do you approve something that is wrong, something that is illegal? And this culture is there throughout because road contractors do less, you know, less material for strength of roads. Those charged with cleaning refuse to clean. Those that hire them refuse to award contracts the right way. So where does this mentality of theft and evil doing come from? Additionally, you have a problem also, for instance, with fake products all over the place. So that now corruption has just become a word, and it's rare to find someone actually standing to do the right thing. I saw the case of this lady from Kenya Ports Authority who was actually fired for challenging Matiangi to be in a queue. And how is that proper? How does that actually happen? And how then can we stop this kind of mentality? Because it's a mentality that is streaming right from the top to the bottom. And many Kenyans also think this way. It's just that they don't necessarily have the power. How do you treat your own domestic worker? How do you treat your brother and your sister? How do you treat your colleague in the office? Is corruption only, Dibal? Is it only in government? Or is there also corruption in the private sector? You know, when it comes to paying salaries, paying commissions,
Thank you to all of us.
in the
Thank you.
media, etc. Let us not be very theoretical about this discussion because we have a societal problem, and until we face it, you know, head on and root it out, we will continue to have spaces and discussions and a lot of, you know, complaining and a lot of bitter tears until kingdom come. Thank you.
Could I just chip in? Could I?
Yes, briefly, then we go to Peter Kagwanje is holding as well. Kindly.
Very, very.
He's mentioned your dad there. You have actually to say something.
Yeah, I wanted to say that my father was somebody who was really different. Without going into a lot of details, when even he died, he left the family with about 3 properties. And when we kept on asking him, why is it that he's not interested in getting farms and property and amassing wealth when we see everybody doing it? And they would say, when you die, you don't actually go with those things. What you do is the best I can do is give you guys the education you need and be able to maneuver in this hostile ground and make sure you live well. Keep your names and your heads high. This did not mean anything to us or me as his son until when I came to the Senate. The Senate is a place where, and I'm so happy all of you here are discussing this issue. The problem we have is much deeper, much deeper than it looks. You may not even solve it with DCI, with people being jailed, unless you begin to use the death penalty and all that. So even when we are talking about CBC and education, unless we go down there and have institutions that are going to accept that you are having government institutions that are going to be run democratically as schools should, where the principal spends money legitimately and within the law and make sure he runs that institution within the law and he succeeds and make sure that everybody keeps the standard, I think we are really miles and miles away. How you do it, Parliament should be involved, but you can see right now, CDF is the biggest scam that ever was. I used it. I was an MP. I can tell you, of course, most of the time I was rated very highly, but I understand every single thing that happens on CDF. And I continue allowing members of parliament to receive money where they actually control and manage that money. The reality is that it is the executive that organizes and produces the budget. their money will always be increased. And the condition is there's a quid pro quo where they must agree to support the executive, whoever it is. And for me, that means the constitution has been violated. That's why the structure is not working. And that is why right now everybody is up to money, money, money. And I don't know how we're going to solve it, but that is the problem.
Thank you, Honorable Onyonka there. Wilson Sossion has been meeting out a bit. I don't know if you flagged out Wilson Sossion so that we can hear from you if you're there. Yes, good evening.
Yes, I'm right here, Dibal. These organs, the organs trafficking in Kenya, I think it is shocking, and it is a very serious national security threat, and that must be dealt with meticulously and effectively. I don't think that is a matter to debate, and the criminal actions in the health sector, they've existed for a long time, right from procurement and corruption practices within the sector. And I think the entry of organs business, and I think it's most shocking. To me, I see no reason why action cannot be taken against such persons and such facilities closed down. And this brings to question and to fore the critical role government that plays in ensuring that all our healthcare services are done publicly, are delivered publicly, together with education. These are two social sectors that must be protected, and quality services delivered to Kenyans through public, through the public, but these privatization, private facilities, private things, anything private, you always smell a rat. I think we've reached as almost a middle income country. We're a country that is now able to deliver its healthcare services through public facilities. We don't need these fraudulent competitors in the health sector interested in business and doing funny things, including organs, businesses with organs. I don't think that is anything to debate about, but facilities called Medihill should have been shut down by now, and not just shut down permanently. And persons involved should face criminal actions once there is evidence. You know, the problem with the criminal justice system in Kenya is the struggle to prove and to get evidence to incriminate. The mere suspicion should just get you out of business, and and uh, and the criminal justice system should not be bureaucratic. It should be made so easy that criminals of this nature can be presented before court for trial. This is a crime, a very serious crime that should not be uh, tolerated. And I urge the cabinet secretary, I can see Dual is doing very well within that space, and the entire ministry officials to maintain a top-notch audit control and and management of the entire health sector, so that such things don't occur again. Thank you, Deepak.
Thank you, Honorable Wilson Sossion there. We appreciate. Let me just yield the floor now to Jeremiah Kioni, just to look at the ethics side of it, because when you see this happening and people now giving out their organs, these are vulnerable populations. And of course, we're talking about the poor from being coerced into organ donation under economic duress. And you've seen the way they've been actually game played. You promise this tidy sum of money, then in the long run, you actually get some very measly amounts. that is not really worth you giving your kidney or you giving your liver, so or a piece of it. If there's something like that, I'm just trying to be, of course, stretching my imagination here. But yes, what do we do, especially in light of this? Because we're living in hard times, and I remember also in the media circles, one of us, I don't know if it was an hyperbole, or one of us also was trying to sell one of his kidneys to try and raise money, and people are questioning why would he sell kidneys. Of course, when it comes to people maybe who are being looked up to in the media fraternity doing that, it gives maybe a thumbs up that this is an ethical thing to do. And people now also take to be very exploitative and extractive, just as we have Professor Kitila Naituli saying. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Ndibala, and I appreciate the comments made by others before me. I think the issue here, the way I see it, is that you first of all make us poor as Kenyans, and then you create a market for our organs, and that's the only thing that is we can claim ownership on. And then, of course, given the difficulties that we are in, we sell those organs. That's the kind of scenario we are in. Then you move on to the institutions that are supposed to ask questions, ensure that they are crippled. We are only left to speak within spaces, and we remain throughout the night until midnight. We go sleep, and in the morning, more organs will have been sold. Because I hear what you are saying. I have the press statement that was issued by Duare on the 15th of April 2025. And he is acknowledging that the government has been aware of this problem since the 20th of July 2023. These concerns were raised with the ministry, and the issue was increased Israelis national receiving kidneys from Kenya. They proceeded to form a task force that was it took its fact-finding mission from the 5th to 8th of December 2023. They have filed their report and what needed to be done. And this is so Duare is actually acknowledging and that the government has been aware that kidneys are being sold. There is a market for kidneys, and there are donors who are so poor enough, we are in such need that if you can donate your kidney and you get 500,000 shillings, you will do that very quickly. Listening to Nyikal, that very detailed process that must be undertaken, it tells you without doubt that the government or those in government are aware of it. And if you had any doubt in it, a report was filed, and Duare acknowledged the contents of the report, including the fact that in the report, they're actually saying that MedHeal had done 372 kidney transplants. And, we elect the executive or those in executive, or if they steal their way into those offices. And once you are there, you have a constitutional mandate, and it is to take care of us as Kenyans and to take care of our property, the fundamental expectations of every other Kenyan. And they have failed to do that, without doubt, to the point where you have kidneys being sold left, right, and center in this country. To even people coming from, the report talks about nationals from Uganda, from Australia, from countries that ideally should not be coming to this country for that kind of medical service, because they have better service systems in their country. But we are that vulnerable, like Professor Naituri said. We are on our own. I have said this before in other forums. I can repeat it here, that we have a team of gangsters that are running us, and that is why we now are this vulnerable. And I want to say this: it's unfortunate that those of us in the opposition sacrificed our mandate. Whether we got it because it is not what we were looking for or not, it is a mandate that we were given by Kenyans. Whether Wetangula compromised the numbers on the floor or not, we in the opposition should be the one holding those in offices in the executive to account. And until that is function, until that we get that running, we will continue complaining and lamenting. Somebody must be held accountable, and there must be those who are going to hold others accountable. The National Assembly, and especially those who are in the opposition, there was nothing to go and sit together in a broad-based thing. I don't acknowledge it. It is really, to me, you can still be able to do more without having compromised that. And that is why we are seeing these excesses from those in the executive. And they'll continue doing that because they have compromised everybody. And for as long as our parliament is as toothless as it is today, for as long as we have our members of parliament speaking very well in spaces like these, and especially or in morning shows and everywhere else, and I have respect for my colleagues everywhere, while they are the ones we expect to move motions of censure, impeachment on the floor, you must instill some fear in the people who are running the system so that they also become accountable. And until we do that, we've not seen the worst of it. We said this when Chakahora was discovered, and it has taken us up to where we are. But look at it. The government has been aware since 2023. A task force was formed. Recommendations were made. If you read the recommendations, they are actually exactly what Professor Nyikale is saying needed to have been done. But until enough organs had been sold, nothing was going to be done. And I want to conclude by saying this. On the 6th of April this year, this month of April, I went to Daragwa, and in the midst of some conversation with the locals there, Aredis told me, do you know, of course, in the mother tongue, perhaps rephrasing it myself, that actually organs are now being sold. And they're actually people are being killed for organs to be removed. That was Daragwa. So I looked at her and I said, this could be the usual talk by some people. I'm surprised and now worried that this is so widespread in this country. And it is happening with the full knowledge of those manning the executive. And until Parliament is able to do something, even to make noise on the floor, disrupt, that's why sometimes you take away the mess if you cannot do anything. Until that happens, we are on our own and expect more organs to go. With the poverty level in this country, we need better protection. Asante.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Pioni there, we really appreciate your sentiment. So we hope that something will actually, remedial measure will come in very soon. I want just to also rope in briefly, where is it? Professor Kadwanja is lost in the
I'm
shuffle.
there.
Oh yeah, good evening.
No,
Yes, I was just looking for you. Uh-huh.
hello, Dibal. Thank you very much. Let me start by congratulating you for creating this platform, because it is really bringing the best of the minds here so that we can speak about our nation. In our own private spaces, we'll be complaining and saying everything. So Dibal and Benji, kudos, congratulations for that.
Thank you.
The problem of Kenya is, the problem we are facing in Kenya is not unique to us. It is it is manifesting itself in certain unique ways that are peculiar to us as Kenyans, but it's a problem that is affecting much of us in Africa, and therefore the diagnosis is not what you can say unique. Our problem is squarely a problem of leadership. If we have a problem that is governed by values, and values are broad, we can define them, but this is not the space, then we will not be really having this conversation. So first and foremost, we must acknowledge that we have a problem with the leadership. And the problem with leadership is not what Chinua Achembe and another would be talking about. The problem with Nigeria is squarely and firmly a problem of leadership. The problem with leadership in Kenya is a leadership without values. It does not have what you can call a sacred cow. Nothing is sacred. Not even, I think, to some extent, even their children may not matter. And when as a nation reaches that level, it is a very, very serious situation that we need not just think about, but begin to think about. This problem of organ trafficking, and we are talking about kidneys. There are more organs that are being trafficked now, not just not just kidneys. You start with asking the question, where is the market? The market is there, and the market is manned and operated by friends of Kenya. It's in the Middle East, and it is one of the well-known market. And if anybody of you have done research, I did research myself immediately after Sakahora, and I went to KTN with Dibal and others, and simply said, this is not what people are telling us. It is not. It cannot be a coincidence that the people who are dying are the prime age when the organ are at their best. So meaning they are, better for the market. They fetch more in the market. So our leadership without values then will go ahead and make fortune out of our children by basically, harvesting their organs and marketing them. Why Shakahora? Look at the geographical location and the proximity to the sea and how easy it is to, export those things without even being held accountable by our system. Because you simply get into the open sea and do whatever you need. And the market is just next door, Middle East. Israel is one of the few countries that come, that come to the picture, but there's more that Israel get from beyond Kenya. If you look at the Sinai Peninsula and the kind of organ harvesting of people who are trying to look for a path to Europe to make fortune. So the point is, we need to have a leadership with values. And what are these values we're talking about? First and foremost, losing one citizen for whatever reason, whether it is because the medical system is bad, because we are entering into unnecessary, arrangement of international arrangements like Haiti and others. We are losing a Kenyan life because we are in Congo and we are unprotected, or we are going to the Middle East because we are duped that there are jobs there, when in essence they are preparing you for organ harvesting there, and then you are brought back home dead without your organs. All those kind of things. A leadership that is ready to protect the Kenyan citizen, not one, not two, but every citizen of Kenya. That's the leadership we need, and that's the value we need. Dibal, the other kind of thing we need is a leadership that is true to itself. If you lose an election, accept you lost an election, and look for the channel that our constitution provides for you to hold this country in terms of what you need to do to it. And therefore, if you are in opposition, you do the best that you can. That's what Kebake taught us. He stayed in opposition for 10 years. And until he was president, he was in the opposition. And he did what an opposition person is supposed to do. It seems some of us are beginning to accommodate ourselves to this mongrel government, that there is something that we're doing or we need to save stability. Kenya is not unstable. It is leaders who are manufacturing instability so that they can have their chronism both ways, in the opposition and in the government. And that's why we are not able to exit this conundrum of a mongrel government, which cannot be held to account. And those in government who are supposed to hold, or the opposition supposed to have the government in account, are just looking for justification as to why they are in that space. So, Dibal, in short, what one is saying is that we need to debate what we need to debate. How do we restore a leadership across the board, from government to the opposition, that has values that we hold? And we are not going to invent values. We have them. We know what the values we are talking about, and they are engraved in our national anthem. Some talk about morality. Morality is okay. Others talk about the rule of law. The rule of law is okay, but who is going to enforce it if you don't have leadership that respects values? Now, when you are given the kind of leadership we are choosing in 2027, and you begin to ask who is the best among who can get us out of the conundrum of problems we are in, then you begin to see we are in a very, very thick wood. We are not yet out of there. Yet, begin to think, Dibar and Benji, that Kenya has every institution that a modern state requires. So we don't need a new institution. In fact, we have institutions in excess. What we don't have is leadership that has the moral persuasion, the moral, that political will to get our laws, our institutions working. So when people talk about the rule of law, these guys know the idea is how do you escape the law? And that's why we are talking about corruption. Corruption is simply one, maybe a tip in the iceberg. The real thing that we are facing is the leadership that is ready to subvert the constitution in order to continue with what it says. And this is not an individual. The people say so and so must go and so on. This is not an individual. This is a problem that is endemic to our society today, across the board, from the church down there to institutions that are supposed to be watching us, the security sector and all. We need to return to our values. And until we do that, we'll talk around. Then somebody should read the book by some of the two Europeans who talk about Africa Works. They are ridiculing us because there comes a time when the state like Kenya is now working and it's working perfectly and people are happy in the world, but it's working opposite of what ought to be happening. In other words, you are a state without values and therefore you are functioning by negotiating your way through this valueless, this criminal, whatever. So what we are witnessing today, and I say this and stop, we have seen the worst stage of the criminalization of the Kenyan state. We don't longer have a state. We only have a criminalized state, which now can be qualified to be a criminal state. That's where we are. And let's not deny it. How have we reached that level of a criminal state? We have reached a level of criminal state because our leadership cannot tell what is good from what is bad. Why? Because we don't respect values. That's where we are, Dibal. I stop.
Thank you.
Question.
Thank you, Peter Kagwanja. Yes, Benji, for the interest of time, I wanted just
Dibal,
to...
this is a space, and so that we are very fair, Dibal, so that we are very fair, allow me as a co-host to ask Professor Kagwanja, an esteemed professor, somebody, a friend of mine, and that I respect so much. Professor, you have just asserted very painfully and very truly, really, that we are victim of a criminal conspiracy, criminal state. I just wonder, so that we are fair, to what extent would you apportion some of this, state of affairs to the previous regime of Uhuru Kenyatta? And I ask that because we want this to be such an objective space where people don't feel that we pile everything on William Ruto, on William Ruto's administration, as if the problem began yesterday. To what extent would you apportion the same to the fourth president? Thank you.
Thank you, Benji. I normally
take a minute, Professor Kagwanja, please. Thank you.
Yes, I normally differentiate between the state and the government. The state is usually the institutions that we have set for ourselves, and they are going to be with us for a long time until we change the constitution in a certain manner. A government is what we put in power every 5 years. And therefore, the question you've asked, Benji, is very relevant. I don't agree. I don't believe that everything that we do must be apportioned to President William Ruto. I don't agree with that. He epitomizes a long problem that we've been having, a problem that has been with us. And I actually trace it to the Jubilee government from the beginning. Even during the Kibaki time, we still had a certain number of issues. But I think what we have reached now is a level where, we are so desperate, and you can see it visibly. For example, Shakahora cannot happen if you have a functioning government. It can never happen. Even before William Ruto came to power, we were complaining. We were actually complaining about many things. So, I do understand that we have reached a level now where people are more desperate. Of course, we are more learned. We can even speak the way we are speaking in a Twitter space and so on. But I don't think this idea of it's William Ruto alone. William Ruto represents a system of leadership. Because what you can say about William Ruto, why can't you say that about Raila Odinga? What is he doing in the government if he's the leader of the government, of the opposition? What is he doing there? He should have resigned as the leader of opposition and then, got into the government as an independent person. You are allowed to to do that. Our system does not allow coalition government after the election. That's the sad state. We may change that into the future, but that's the situation. So Benji, straight and clear, the problem is not squarely a problem of William Ruto. It's squarely a problem of our leadership, of which he's part of.
Asante.
Thank you. Thank you. And allow me to invite, because now we want to change gears and we talk about now the entry of Matiang'i into a very charged atmosphere. He walks in, and of course, we saw that was a highlight of the week as well. We want to see what will be discernibly different about him. Questions around also his presidential ambition, his connection with the Jubilee Party. Is he Uhuru Project? And of course, Jeremiah Kioni will tell us more about that, him being the Secretary General of the Jubilee Party. But I want to invite Dr. Ignatius. Dr. Ignatius Achai is joining us from Dubai. He's an orthopedic surgeon at Asta Hospital, Mankul, just to also give us just his perspective of what is truly happening in the country before we shift gears and also hear from Professor Bashar Munene just briefly. And as we're wrapping up that particular topic, I wonder if, of course, I'll be remiss if I don't up the legislators. That is Dr. James Chikal and the Honorable Richard Nyonka, both from Parliament, but Cameroon Parliament, speaking on this issue and what they're going to do on the floor of the House regarding it. Briefly, over to you, Ignatius, from Dubai.
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening. I'm happy to be on the space. We've been talking about kidneys. There's a lot that is happening in Kenya. From where we sit, we see a lot and we hear a lot. We have evidence. This has been happening for quite a long time. We have friends in Kenya who are our friends. It has happened since the times of Shakahola. Honorable Richard Onyonka knows, the vice president knows, the current vice president knows what happened in Shakahola was not spiritual acts. They know the truth. That is why they are taking too much long to tell Kenyans what really happened. These were businesses that were happening between politicians, very prominent people, and it has now gone into another situation whereby we have our young boys who are lured in the same business in our communities just because of 500,000. Sincerely speaking, what is that? This was something that was happening before, and it was a pride. It was supposed to be a donation, not a business. It comes to a business when the situation is so much dire that there is a problem in finding what you really need, you know? I will propose that this should be regulated. Senator Richard Onyonka, kindly work on this. Let this happen in a way that it is happening between families. You have a brother who has a kidney problem, should go to a fellow brother or a sister. This should be happening in family. Now you see you are going to hospital whereby we have investors from different countries. They are taking our boys and girls to donate these kidneys on names from foreign countries. Now, start tracing on those things. You'll find where the kidneys are going is not even in Kenya. They are outside. They are outside business because they have come to Kenya because of the system, the leadership, very poor leadership. Now they are doing business in Kenya because they cannot be tracked. Actually, some hospitals should be closed, and I'll be naming them very soon, because it is not only Mid-Hill. You know, you have the evidence, you have them, but you are not giving Kenyans. Now we are going to take this as our own business. Yes, we have licenses. I know some of them shall be checked in because we shall be speaking the truth. But we cannot be silent and see our brothers and sisters dying. Something like plasma, bone marrow, kidney was done in a way that it is a prestigious act, not that everybody can do it. Actually, it should be regulated. Now we should be having older people doing it. If you know your days are numbered and you have something that you can offer, then you can do it. Not only boys, small boys, 20 years. What is that? Yeah. Then I'll come on the issue of Mr. Fred Matiang'i. This is a well-known man. He's our father. He's our brother. But I'll be frank enough to say that.
Could we just hold it before we go to Fred Matiang'i so that we wrap up on this organ issue, and then we go freshly to it so that we are not going back and forth on the same topic. We want just to wind it up. So kindly, maybe you can wind up. Are you done?
Benji,
Yeah,
Benji,
Dibal here.
Benji, Dibal,
Yes.
could I just say,
Okay, you want
Dr. Nyonga here.
Okay, just a moment. I wanted just to hear Dr. Ignatius. Are you done?
Yes.
You're done. All right, just hold it up. Honorable Onyonka, you wanted to say something briefly?
Yeah, the point I wanted to make is that when the gentleman was speaking, he would make it look like people like me, for example, who are in that committee, we did not even intend to tell Kenyans the truth. I will tell him that the investigations were shoddy. Why were they shoddy? There were places we couldn't go. We were not given the ability to go and even check on the morgue. We didn't know who did the forensics. When we came out, we found the places we couldn't find certain government officers. So in the end of that report, all that exists in the report, and we pronounced ourselves in that report. And you remember, if somebody can be memorable, you remember the current deputy president was the minister for interior and what he said about that whole exercise we were conducting. Then after that, they started trashing our names, saying we were being bribed to do ABCD, which absolutely was not the case. The point I want to make is that we have very little capacity, even as the Senate, to then, if, for example, I put the question last week on Thursday, Duale reacted on Friday, under normal or different circumstances, by this week, which is coming on Tuesday, the committee should have sat and started discussing this matter. But it might go up to the month of June or July. By that time, all of us are assumed to have forgotten what was being discussed and what the point anyway. So the whole system is designed like that. I want to say there are many, many other things happening in the country. Very few people are willing to pronounce themselves, but I can promise you here that there's nothing I will know that is going to be against the Kenyan Republic that is either a lie or that is going to be injurious, and I will not pronounce myself. That is my reality right now. So many of us are sacrificing, and we want on these spaces for you all to continue engaging Kenyans, because Kenyans have to wake up. Everybody has to wake up.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, Dibal, allow me to chip in briefly here.
Honorable, you can't just mute your mic. I'm trying to mute you. We'll come to you. Just mute your mic.
James.
Dibal, allow me to just chip in here before we go to the next topic.
Yes, please.
Let me finish.
I think from the discussion, and I think what we need to note here is we are actually discussing symptoms to a problem. One, there is collapse of the institutional values in the country. And in our entire background noise increasingly questioned. It's not about individuals, it's not about a community, but it's about a Kenyan culture. In fact, there is a study done by Michigan State University a few years ago where a wallet with money and business cards was circulated in about 40 countries. It was dropped in every city. A wallet was dropped with the money and wallet and the business cards, on the assumption that when you collect the wallet, you will return it to the owner of the wallet. And guess what? Kenya was number 36 out of 40 countries. The top countries were Denmark, Finland, name it. Kenya was number 36, but actually the 15% returned the wallet, but without money, with only the business card. That tells you about the kind of integrity we are talking about. Because integrity is about doing the right things even when no one is watching you. This issue is not about any leader. It's about us as a society called Kenya, and we need to go back to the drawing board and ask, how do we reinvent institutions of values and integrity so that we can have a better society? And I can listen to Kagwanja, I've listened to Rich and Onyoka, and all that I can say is that we need to go back to the drawing board and start questioning ourselves from the spaces we occupy as individuals at our homes, at our schools, and do the right things right and all the time. If we don't do that, we shall blame the leaders for things that are only symptoms of the problem. The second issue is that listening to the discussion, I think we need to say that money is actually running this society. It is a question for money. Every individual, many individuals in this country seem to be motivated by nothing else but stealing and getting money with all the intentions and using all means possible. Selling of kidneys is the same as selling drugs. Buying exams in schools. We have seen in medical schools, parents buying exams for their children to train them as doctors. Wow, and what will happen to that doctor who knows very well they stole exams, they did not pass well, but they are treating someone's child? It's not the government that is doing that, but the government has also dilapidated and weakened institutions of the rule of law, because it's the responsibility of the government to show that the law works and works every time and everywhere. But the government has not done that. In fact, the individuals and institutions supposed to grant and promote the rule of law are the very ones who are eroding the rule of law. And that's where we are where we are. And that's where this becomes a chicken and egg kind of business. So putting the right leadership in place is not enough if it's not accompanied by a society that changes its values to say enough is enough, and we need a better Kenya all the time. But remember, we got into this space at two times. One, the stolen election of Raila Odinga in 2007. There's no doubt that election was stolen. In fact, the truth and everything now seems to be coming out very clearly. But at least we corrected that by having a coalition government. We had a 2010 constitution, but guess what again? We voted for Uhuru and Ruto when it was very clear that these are individuals who would not pass Chapter 6 of the Constitution. We as Kenyans are to blame for some of these things, and that's why we need to reflect again and ask ourselves, what kind of leadership do we have that can take us back to the drawing board and do the right things right? When we elected Uhuru Kenyatta as the president and the deputy, William Ruto as the deputy in 2013, when they had cases at ICC, that was wrong. It was equivalent to saying the constitution and the rule of law does not matter, because we would have waited for them really to have been adjourned right or wrong by the International Criminal Court. So we have laid a very bad foundation for our institutions, and we are reaping this from our own bad manners, if I can say that. And the idea say there is need for us to start making reflections on this so that we get the right framework for the rule of law, entrench a culture for the rule of law, and be sure you don't defend the wrong things because they've been committed by someone from your tribe or by your friend. Kenya should not be a country where I, as Karuti Kanyinga, will defend Dibar because he's my friend or he's from my community. We should be a country where we always defend the right things, whether they have been done by someone from by whoever has done them. But I've seen a tendency, including in this forum where we are today, in the last 4 or 5 times that 3 times we've been here, there's a tendency for us to speak the right things when we know very well we are speaking the wrong things, when we want to defend certain positions. Really, this country cannot be built by anyone else but by ourselves, by speaking the truth and the reality of what there is. We need to go back to the drawing board, correct our values, and say that we are a country that should be governed by the correct values, a country that is governed by the rule of law, and a country that stands tall for the generations to come. Allow me to say that this thing of integrity, the issue of integrity, has also gone far and beyond. We have never seen people getting into churches to steal. Now there are stories every day about people going to steal from the churches. Actually, the offertory box in many of the churches that I have attended, when I do, you realize that where you drop the money, you cannot, I mean, it has become much smaller because people have been digging their fingers there and getting the money that is contributed as offertory. We have gone wrong as a society, and we need to start reflecting on some of these things. On organ failure, I respect Professor Nikal's judgment and contribution on this. And I think people need to know that Dr. Nikal actually was also a trade unionist. He was one of the first people who started the UASU, University Academic Staff Union, of the early 1990s. I wish you can see Professor Nikal wearing a red gown as a trade unionist. You run away. And because he was very vocal and very articulate in presenting the views of lecturers. Similarly, Dr. Kioni, Mr. Mheshimiwa Kioni here, is one of the best sportsmen I've ever seen at the university. If you have ever beaten him in volleyball, let me know and I will buy you a drink. But ladies and gentlemen, I think we have got to correct the society from where we are as individuals, doing the right things from where we are in our spaces. Things have gone wrong and we cannot blame the leaders alone. We are also responsible for some of the mistakes that we see in this country. Some of the things that are happening are our own responsibility to correct them. And as I have said, integrity is about doing the right things even when no one is watching you. If we do the right things every time, Kenya will become a better society to live in, and for our generation and those who are yet to come. Unfortunately, many of us are contributing to a bad generation in the future. Let's correct this and move together as a country.
Thank you, Prof. Very, very cogent comments that.
Can I say something?
Yes, I wanted that just to come to you, Professor Dr. Nikal, on this as we are wrapping up, because there is a remarkable concurrence that is coming from our panelists this evening. When you're talking about, of course, the place of values, when you're talking about nobility of character at the end of the day, and we can see all this confluence of issues coming together, pointing to a larger moral and regulatory collapse across multiple sectors, not only just within the security sector, but even the hospitals when you're talking about ethics. And these are ethical issues that we're discussing when we look at the transplants. What is a regulatory framework around ethic or people who want to do it ethically, right? And this still exploitation. Because I wanted to just ask you briefly so that we can wind up. I think we are stuck for time. We want to talk about Matiang'i. Honorable Richard Onyoka, thank you for hanging around. So Kabando, I don't know if it's lost in the shuffle. Jeremiah Kioni, you've dropped. If also you may just accept my invite, or you can ask for the mic so that we can actually also shift gears as well. Question to you, Honorable Yikal, even as we're winding up on this particular topic, I wanted just to ask you, I think there is need for the Tissue Act. You can just elaborate on that briefly, if any, or on this. Yes, please.
I can say, well, let's start with that simple one of the Tissue Act. The Tissue Act is actually in process. It's something we looked at before, and we are looking at it. But what I really want to say is that laws will not on their own make a society if the people themselves are not committed at heart in their own feelings on what is right and what is wrong. If you ask me, somebody said, I've been in this issue for a long time. We started OASU, was involved in the doctor's strike as a young person, at the all these things. But to me, the two things that come out that we really must address is the issue of ethnicity and corruption, money and tribalism. Because whenever people start to move and get in a direction that they can take, the manipulation that comes are mainly two. You might want to manipulate it, our people, or you want to manipulate it, somebody will be bought. I think of all the things we have, those two are really, to me, the things we have to look at. And when we talk of leadership and values, now leadership here, whether you are talking of politicians, whether you are talking of religious leaders, whether you are talking of professionals, all of us seem to fail at this issue of having the values, integrity, and morality. Why is that happening? Because I think once you have manipulated people either on ethnic grounds or other means of nepotism, or you have used money on them, once they lose the track, then they tend now to support where they are. They are lost in there, but they're still supporting it. And I've seen it even in Parliament. Honorable Kerein was talking, Honorable Onyonka was talking. Eventually, it will come to those two things. People will either be mobilized on ethnic grounds, or people will be mobilized using money improperly. So, and even if we're going to talk about election, how come we every 5 years when we go to the elections, to me it looks like people are the quality of people we get in terms of integrity are getting worse and worse. As leaders, I don't feel like we're getting better. We're getting worse and worse. And it's not only elected leaders, it is in churches, it is amongst the professionals. So where do we start? Me, my view, let's look at this issue of ethnicity. Let's look at this issue of corruption and money. If we can tackle these two, maybe we can get somewhere. Now, look at the elections. I want to say, I said earlier, in 2027, what is going to really drive a lot of things is actually money. You are seeing it even now. A lot of money is actually floating around. I mean, the
Can you let
political
me say
arena.
something?
A lot of money is floating around. And yet, the services in the health sector, in
I like
education, are not. So, we have to really start looking at those two places, somewhere to start. That's my thing. The laws will put, the Tissue Act will put in place. But even without the Tissue Act before, the donation of blood, the donation of plasma, the donation of bone marrow,
I like
these
to
things were being
interject here.
done before without the laws. But now, even the professionals, we are looking more at money. We don't look at people's value on what they stand for. People tend to look at what does he have, and that, to me, those two things. Let's look at them.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We need to shift gears. Professor Gitila, you wanted to say something? Just a minute so that we can actually move on.
Yeah, that's
You
yes.
stay on
But
topic.
that 1 minute the minute is enough. I want to remind my friend in Nikao, Daktari, that I don't believe money will have any role in the next election. I think money will be used. People will take money because they know it's their stolen money they are taking back, and they will not vote in that direction. How do I know that? The Central Kenya, we ignored Uhuru Kenyatta completely with all the money they used. We ignored him and we voted for William Ruto, who didn't use money. He just came to us with the Bible. So money will be relevant here. I think the society has grown to an extent that the next election money is not going to be a factor.
Okay, we'll watch. But even now, it is being used a lot, even in Central. You know that.
Yeah, but people took the money. The president Gundaziwaro put the money in the State House and he let the money clap for him. People took the money. But look at that in ballot when it comes. That money will
What
not
about
produce anything.
what about corruption in other areas? Is it
No,
still
no,
not
I want to
managed?
agree with you about corruption. Corruption is the largest in government expenditure. It has gotten worse with this Kenya Kwanza administration. It was, of course, worse also in the Jubilee. In my opinion, this is in Jubilee phase 2, and is worse than in Jubilee phase 1.
Professors, money will play a role at both parliamentary and presidential election, but it may not necessarily influence the outcome. Money will play a role, but it will not necessarily determine the outcome. Several factors will combine to determine the outcome. At National Assembly, at county level, money will also play a role. I know Nikal, in his constituency, they spend not less than 36 million, or 25 million, sorry. Those are the figures we had when we did the study on cost of politics. But it will increase because of internal competition. At presidential level, 7 billion, above 7 billion, but still that will not determine the outcome. There are
So
several
just
factors that will combine,
so
but
just
money
very
will be
quickly,
one of them. It's a
very
combination of factors.
yeah, very quickly. Also, what the Professor Garuto was saying is
Okay.
that government
Just
is
wind
an
up.
innocent mirror of the people it is representing.
Right. Thank you. I think
It is a matter of collective consciousness.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Gitile Naituli. Peter Kagwanja, allow me just not to yield the mic to you right now because we want to shift gears. I kindly allow me just to also rope in Professor Mashari. I'll hand over the mic to you briefly, Peter Kagwanja, but Professor Mashari has been also milling out for quite a while. Briefly, so that we move on to the other topic. Professor Mashari. Kindly unmute if you're on. Yes, briefly.
Yes, thank you very much. It's an interesting topic to discuss, but I would like to shift gears a little bit and look at the religious organizations, what role they play in all this mess. It appears that in every one of the major denominations, or let's say the Christian sides, in every major one, they have cults within them. And some of those cults are very dangerous to society. And they are doing a lot of strange things. And they are doing those things presumably with the knowledge of the top hierarchy of the religious organization. And that top hierarchy would appear to be in league with the top hierarchy of governance. So there is something deeper that Shakahola is just symbolic of the whole thing. That maybe our friends in parliament like Dr. Nyikal, Senator Onyonka, and the others who may be there, maybe you need to investigate the cults and what damage they are doing. Because if they are operating that way, there is, one would think radicalization is taking place in those places. And some also the teachings that are very unbecoming, they undermine the values, the beliefs that are important to a society. So the re-examination of religious organizations and what damage they do to society, instead of upholding the morals of being morally upright, some of them appear to be promoting something that is really negative. And then when you try to ask, you say, well, we don't know who is, you don't know who is in charge. Because the network at the top appears to be very strong. Maybe if the religious organization can be made to explain themselves, we might be making some headway. Although it is true, as Nyakal talks about, yes, corruption is a big, big, bad thing. It is there. Ethnicity, yes, it is there. Sometimes it's overplayed anyway, but it is there. But and although the loss of values, yes, they are there. But how to deal with them? Maybe you need to look at moral guardians, and the religious organizations are purportedly the guardians of public morals. And if they themselves are having problems, at least we've seen some religious leaders quarreling in public, sometimes even exchanging some physical things in the process. I mean, people are left wondering. They are the same ones who tell us that a certain politician is very good. Only it turns out that he may not be very good. They are the same ones who do this and this. So maybe we need to relook at the religious structures as a starting point in order to, by the time you are dealing with these the organs trading, we might have gone a bit far than we are right now doing, because it appears to be very complex and very detailed in terms of who might be involved in it. So those are my thoughts on that for now.
Thank you, Professor Mashara Maneno. For that, we appreciate. And Peter Kagwanja, you want just to wind up the topic so that we can go to Herman Manyora, set the tone, and Honorable Richard Onyonka set the tone for Matiang'i just before. So we before we stop for time. We want to be happy campers here. Kindly mute.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. It's not. I'm not adding anything new to what has been said. I just want to. I don't want us to lose the gains we've made in terms of conceptualizing the Kenyan problem. And I think I concur with Professor Nikal, and that's why I've come back to just reinforce what he is saying. He has just moved us 2 steps forward to kind of identifying what is the problem with us, and he has identified the 2 problems. We need to understand them in their context. Why is corruption an issue? Corruption is an issue because it has reached a level in this country of ours where there is nothing that money cannot buy. And the moment you live in a society where money is everything, and that money can buy everything, including kidneys and souls, then we have a problem. And I think that's what Professor Nikal was saying about this. That it's about money and corruption, how you get the money, how you use it, and how people accept in terms of their values that we can live with this. There is no protest about what's wrong or what is right. Second is what he says about tribalism now, or ethnicity. Of course, our tribes are not a problem. John Lonsdale talks about moral ethnicity. If I go to Nyanza to help in fundraising for a sick person, and I'm invited by a member of a clan or a member of a sub-tribe, that's not what we are talking about. We are talking about when a political leader has criminalized the state, has committed all manner of vices, and here he comes and hide behind this tribe and say we are being persecuted. Or somebody goes to perform an act that is undermining our constitution and say that it is our time to eat or our time to be in the government because we have been marginalized for centuries. I mean, that kind of a discourse which enables a leader to criminalize the state and society by way of claiming about us and creating an us versus them are the 2 main problems. These are the 2 pillars of the criminalization of our state and criminalization of our society. And until we address them, there must be something that money cannot buy. There must be something, there must be somewhere somebody cannot hide. You cannot be hiding your tribe, and you cannot buy everything with money. The moment we don't deal with those 2 problems, then we're not going anywhere. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. I really appreciate those sentiments, and I know it's a cancerous, very dangerous thing that we've never been able to slay the cancer of corruption. And we always tell and ask Kenyans, when will we try and lance this boil of corruption that is corrupting, of course, every facet of our lives, including even our health as well. And we know our bodies, they always say, take care of your body is the only place you live. Once now you start donating some of the organs that are very critical for your health as well, they always say you can survive with one. But there is a reason why God gave you 2 kidneys. There is a reason why God gave you 2 lungs, right? So he's not really none the wiser when he knows that you need these organs. So the fact that we actually donating it, I don't know. They normally say, oh yeah, you can actually survive with one. I don't know how from what medical perspective that has been proven, or maybe people are living with one, how they tend to fare with one kidney. But I'm reminded of Khalil Gibran. I love his works. He always say that out of suffering have emerged also the strongest souls. The most massive characters are seared with scars. And even as we're going through these harrowing tortures as well, I know we'll actually emerge as strong Kenyans who have the nobility of character at the end of the day.